Right, today we are going to make sauerkraut, and we are only beginners at this. We've only made it one load last year and we really liked it, and so this year we've decided to go out a bit further and make some different flavours instead of just the straight cabbage one. So we've got a cabbage here. Oh, before I continue, let me just say this is what we're going to be making. This is the, what is it we're making here? The ginger, carrot, garlic, sauerkraut. I think this is the tastiest one. Other people may not agree with me on that, but I think it's got a lovely gingery taste to it. It's got not just the blandness of the, well, not the blandness, but the sweet normal carrot taste that you get. It's got the other flavours that all permeate through it as well, and it's a lovely garnish. Here's a little bit of it here, a lovely garnish to any salad, etc. And it's got that, when it's done like it is there now, it's got this beautiful crunchy taste to it. And the gingers and the garlics just come through and, oh man, I just love it. So, since making our first one, I've really become a fan of sauerkraut. And so what we're going to do now is make our sauerkraut. I've got here a cabbage from the garden. I've just picked it, taken the leaves off the outside, sprinkled a bit of water just to wash it off, and it weighs around about 2 to 3 pounds, or around about a kilo. What we found the easiest way to get the cabbage chopped, rather than trying to do it all by hand, this is just what we found. We chop it into segments, put it into the mixer here, it cuts with the blades on it for cutting, which are the cutting blades that we have here, and they cut up the cabbage really easily, saves all that hard work of cutting it by hand, and it's the way that we found is the best way to do it. My assistant has already chopped up or grated up the carrot, which we've got here. It's already grated up and ready to go. You need a nice big bowl like this, that we found is the easiest thing for putting the cabbage into once it's grated with the other ingredients, and you can really get in and munch it with your hands, as I'll show you shortly. Anyway, moving on. Let's chop our cabbage up into segments with my blade, and we'll chop it up. Now it has to be chopped up small enough so that it fits within the mouth of the, in our case it's this here, we have to chop it up small enough so it fits around about, the hunks of cabbage around about that diameter there, to fit inside this, which goes into the blender so they can chop up. If you're doing it obviously by hand, you don't have to worry about that. So, let's continue this, take out these big bits of chunky stuff out here. We'll just stop the video here and come back to you when I've finished doing this and we're ready to put it into the blender. Okay, I did make a mistake before. I didn't give credit to the lady whose recipe I'm using. She comes from a website called makesauerkraut.com, and her name is Holly Howe. She has books, etc. on making sauerkraut, and this is the ginger, garlic and carrot recipe that I've taken looking around on the internet, and I found it on the iPad, and I've got it sitting right here, and that's the recipe that I'm following, and that's the one we made here that I really liked. So we've chopped our cabbage, we've got it all set here, we've got our garlic all beautifully chopped up, we've got our ginger chopped up here ready to go. I'm going to add the recipe for what amounts I'm using here. In the case of the garlic, it was 1 to 2 cloves, I think it was, about a 1 to 2 inch size of ginger. I'll put all that underneath in the notes underneath this video, but what we're going to do now is chop up the cabbage in the food process. I've been told by my assistant that this is not a mixer and it's not a whatever else I called it, it's a food processor. I'm just a basic kind of guy trying to make sauerkraut, so forgive me. No, let's go. Let's put a bit of the cabbage in here. Oh, what I should do first of all though, is before we do that, which I've forgotten to do, it always helps if you actually do put the cutter in, because it goes much better when you do that. And it goes, which way? This way. It must be that way. I think that's the way it goes. Anyway, we'll try that. I think that's right. Soon find out, won't we? Stick it in and it doesn't work, that's a good sign. It doesn't work that, whoops, now we've forgotten to put, hang on, got to get all this right. goodness me. What have I got wrong? Here we go. God, all the bits and pieces got to stick in these damn things. Right, here we go. Cabbage has gone in there. This goes into here. Let's give it a wee bit of a blurb and see what happens. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Beautiful system. Little trick, make sure you turn the power on the food processor before you start. So, there we go. Beautiful. Look at that, it's chomped up in there. Great, saves a lot of hard work. Brilliant way to chomp up your cabbage, etc. when you're adding it for making it the sauerkraut. Love that. Everything to make life easier. Again, we'll just stop the video here and I'll continue to do the rest of the cabbage and we'll come back to you when it's all ground up and ready to go. Okay, just putting in the last few bits now of the cabbage into the food processor. Using it all up, putting it all in there. There we go. So that's all in the food processor now. Open it up. And as I said before, it's the blade I've got. I'm using a blade, not the, as my assistant has told me again, I said that wrong. It's not the grater, I think it's called. It's the cutter in the food processor that I'm using. Careful, it's sharp. Don't touch it with your hands. Now, just take all the cabbage once you've got it all cut up in there. And as you can see, it's all beautifully cut up and ready to make into the sauerkraut. So let's get it out of there and get it into our bowl. In here, and there we have our cabbage in there, ready to go. This is looking a great mixture in there, all cut up beautifully, and that's the way we like it. Okay, now we're into the next part of this process, and this is where we are going to add the salt, which is the workhorse behind making sauerkraut. Now there's a mixture of salt that you need to add to the cabbage mixture with your carrot and the garlic and the ginger, which I haven't added just yet. And what I've found is that for that amount of cabbage is around about a tablespoon, and that's what's recommended in the recipe as well, about a tablespoon of salt. We're using the Himalayan pink salt, which is recommended by people who make sauerkraut at home as the best salt to use. There's reasons if you want to read it on the internet about why that is, but that's what we've been using and getting great results for. There is a ratio if you want to use it of cabbage to salt when using it, and that ratio is around about 2% of the weight of the value of the mixture that you have, the final mixture. So you multiply that amount by 2. So if you had, say, 800 grams of mixture, then you times that by 0.02 and that would give you 16, which means you need to add 16 grams of salt to the mixture. But as I've said, for this mixture, the tablespoon of salt is about what it uses for that 2 to 3 pounds or just under a kilo of cabbage. Right, we're now going to add our ginger to the mixture here. Just sprinkle that all in there. Now, just so that you're aware that I did wash my hands before commencing all of this, so they aren't dirty, which is a good thing to keep in mind if you're making sauerkraut. Keep your hands clean. Add the garlic to the mixture now. It looks like my board is stuck to the bench here, so I can't move it. There we go. Add the garlic now to the mixture here as well, sprinkling it around the top. Give it all a bit of a mix in. And the smell now coming off of here is delightful. You can almost start to taste it now when all this mixture starts coming together, which is just great. Now, I found, and a hint that I've got from looking on the internet as well, is that when I first made our mixture, we started massaging the cabbage and the mixture at this point. And it's quite hard work getting in there and massaging it to create the brine once the salt starts working. But what I found is the easier thing to do now is to actually just sprinkle the salt onto the top of the cabbage mixture, as I've done here now. Just mix that in a little bit into the mixture and then just allow it to do its job. So what that'll do now, I'll leave that sitting here for around about 20 to 30 minutes to allow it to start to do its work, to powerhouse through there, and starts to create the brine and the cabbage mixture. So it takes about 20 minutes to half an hour for that to happen, and then it's nowhere near as much work to massage it to get the brine working in there, which is what we're looking for. So that's all in there now, ready to start doing its work. We'll come back in about 20 minutes and see how it's going. Okay, just while that's doing its work, I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about the jars. What we've been using is the tried and true preserving jars here for putting the sauerkraut into. Any jars will do. This is a slightly bigger, wider jar, wider mouth here on it, which is good. Don't get the little thin mouth jars because it's really hard to get a fork in and get the stuff out later on. So I found the wider mouth jars are much better. What else you're going to also need is some little Ziploc bags. Now I'll explain the reason why these Ziploc bags. They're used for traps. It allows the fermentation process to happen underneath. We put water in them and it holds the cabbage down once it's in the jar. I'll explain a little bit more about that later, so you're going to need a couple of these for putting into the jars later. And the preserving jars, you can get all sorts of sizes for them, and it doesn't matter really, as long as it's a glass jar. I found they work great, or ceramic pots are good as well. Good, strong containers for putting the stuff into. It has got a lid of some kind for it as well. So that's the story of the jars. We'll come back when this is ready to massage by hand just a little bit. The sauerkraut's now been sitting for just over 30 minutes and the salt started to do its work. You can see that because the volume of the contents has actually started to shrink down considerably, and now we're going to massage the cabbage and the mixture. And I don't know if you can see it there, the moisture just sitting in the bottom here. You can see the brine starting to form just sitting in here, and that's what we're looking for. So let's start the massage process now and watch how it just shrinks down. Right, let's get into it. So squeeze it here, just massage, and as you can see here now, it's really starting to shrink down in size, the volume of it, and you can feel the juice between your fingers. Beautiful, that's what you're looking for. It doesn't mean that you've got to squash this stuff up, as I've been accused of doing by my lovely assistant. You've just got to massage it, which is what I'm doing here. And as you can see now, it's just condensing it down. And look at that beautiful brine all starting to... Can you see it all in there, that brine? Beauty. I'll tell you, here's another little thing that I've learnt too. This is an aluminium pot, old jam pot. But we're sitting on top of a stone bench here, and what happens is if you don't put something underneath this, then it makes black marks on the bench. You can wipe them off and clean it off, but it does make the black marks. But it's just really starting to form in there now. Look at that, it's absolutely beautiful. And it's so much easier now, having been sitting for that 30 minutes. You can see now why I'm saying that it just saves so much effort. It would take far more massaging to get to this point if we'd done it straight away. The salt's just done its magic over the time it's been sitting here. There's a feel it gets to it. It just feels the right texture. It's hard to explain what it's like. It's like cotton wool almost in your hands once you get it to the right texture. Anyway, it's done there now, just slowly massaging it in. And we've got this beautiful brine that you saw sitting in the bottom there now. So that's that brine that we want. As we push it into the jars, we'll come to the top. So our next step is going to be taking it out of here and putting it into our preserving jars. So I have my preserving jar, and we're ready to start putting the massaged mixture of the cabbage, the carrot, the garlic, the ginger, and put it all into the jar. So you can see there, it's all looking absolutely beautiful. Look at that brine sitting in there. Hoping there's enough brine. Should be. If not, we'll just add a little bit of water to it. So we're now going to get this. That wasn't the right thing to do, apparently, by the look I'm getting from my assistant. But anyway, that's what I have done in the past. So here we go. Shovel this in. Remember, I'm just a bloke making sauerkraut. Not a cook, not an expert on this. This is just the things I've been doing. Do it in a bloke's way. Let's put this in here. Now, one of the keys with packing this into the jar is to make sure that it's really pressed in there. Now what I should be doing, I haven't made or thought about at this point, is a way or a tool or something that you can get, and I'm sure there is something some wise person on the internet other than myself has probably found a way of getting something in there that you can really force the weight down on the jar. And so what I've done is just used my hands, but you really need to force that in. And when you do that, all the brine comes to the surface. You can see it there. See the brine just sitting on, comes up to the surface. And that's what you want. You want the brine on the surface, not sitting down underneath there. So you really need to push that cabbage down into there. Really press it down, compress it. You can see it'd be good if you had something that would just fit neatly around the top of it, but haven't got that. So we continue here with just putting all our mixture into the jar. Now it's amazing when you see all that mixture that was sitting inside this pot and it finally goes into the jar. When you first put it into the pot, you think it's never going to fit into a jar. But there we go. Or the pan. But I'm just a bloke. I can't always get all these words right. Anyway, not that it makes any difference. The stuff still goes in there, and the sauerkraut still tastes great, regardless of what you call your utensils. Push it all down. Look at that. See that brine? Look at it. Beautiful. That's what you're looking for. And that's the salt doing all its work there. That's bored all this brine to the surface. And it's just absolutely magic. That's what you're looking for. And it's important, very important, that this brine does sit on the surface. And we need to make sure that sits on the surface. And I'll show you what we did, how we do that with the little plastic bags. So just a little bit more in there, and that will be about enough mixture in this jar. So we put that all down there. Oops, you don't want to lose that, that's the brine. So there it is, in there. Now, what we want to do here is we want to keep a weight, if you like, on top of the cabbage. And I've probably put a wee bit too much of that in there, so let's just get a little bit of that out. I shouldn't have probably put that last wee bit in there, so maybe I'll just take a little bit out. See, it's great to have an assistant who can be standing there all the time, as they do. Whenever you make a mistake, you know immediately you've done something wrong, and you can just quietly fix it. So in this case, I've added far too much cabbage into the jar because there's not enough room there for the seal, apparently. Anyway, there it is. It's sitting in there now. Beautiful, look at that. And that's that brine on the top. That's what does the work. So, here we go, in there. Beautiful. That's bloody beautiful. Now, see there? Look, that's the mixture. Still got enough in there to make some more brine in there. Anyway, let's concentrate on our jar here that we've got. Now, what I'm going to do is, this is where these plastic bags come in so handy. Just little sandwich Ziploc bags, and they work perfectly for making a seal around here and keeping the weight on the cabbage mixture to keep it down below the brine. So all you do is put a little bit of water in here, which I will do. I don't know if you can see me doing this or not from there, but that's what I'm doing. A little bit of water into the plastic bag. Now once that's in there, all we need to do is put this into the jar here so it seals around there, but also keeps the weight on the cabbage. Now the trick is getting the right amount of water into the jar so it doesn't spill out over the top, but it's enough weight. See that? Look at that, how that beautifully, that just brings that brine to the surface and keeps the weight on the cabbage, but still just a tad too much weight on there. Let's get rid of a wee bit more of that water. Now the good thing about the water is it'll make a wonderful seal. Pull that down across there. It makes this wonderful seal around the jar, and so it doesn't allow any baddies, if you like, to get inside there and upset the fermenting process going on inside the jar. So there it is, beautifully sealed off there, and what will happen now as we sit this down over time is that the fermentation process will start. I found that with fermenting this stuff, the best temperature for doing this, and where I keep it is in the bathroom, in the bath, not just empty in the bath, an empty bath. In the bath, it sits around about 18 to 22 degrees is the greatest temperature for doing that. If it's colder where you are, then it's going to take longer for the fermentation process to work. If it's hotter, it'll take quicker for the fermentation process to work. I've also found that these plastic containers, which you get when you buy your Chinese or whatever, are great for putting the jars inside, because what will happen is the fermentation starts, it'll bubble and some of the brine will start to bubble out over here. So to stop that making a mess inside the bath, I pop the jars inside of here. So I'll just get myself a cloth here, just wipe the bottom of the jar like that, put it inside there, and there we have it. We have the jar with the brine, with the water, everything sitting in there. We get the lid for the top of it here, and we just place it on top. I don't screw it down tight, because if you screw it down tight, the gases can't escape and it might pop off. So just put it on top, one little turn like that, not on tight, just so it's on top of the jar. And now that will sit there, as I say, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you'll have this beautiful mixture. I've also written on the top, with a bit of tape on top, what that mixture is, what I've put in there, because you forget over a period of time. A bit of a power tip here. I have read that if you use builder's masking tape on here to write on, I didn't have any, so I haven't used it. When you peel the tape off, it doesn't leave that sticky residue on the lid. So probably a much better idea if you can get hold of builder's masking tape. So don't forget to put the date on top of the lid as well, because the date's really important, because it'll last. Usually once this is finished fermenting and you've put it in the fridge for using, you've got about a year to use it. So you don't want to be having it for much longer than that. So the date's great for remembering that your sauerkraut, you've got to use it by the end of that year. But also, having the mixture on it, as I've said, gives you an idea of what was actually in there for the flavour. Good luck with your sauerkraut. That's a bloke's way to making sauerkraut. Might be a bit confusing. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this. Hope you're not too confused about it all. Good luck with making your own sauerkraut.